Okay. I think I got it. Yeah, should have it. Look, I will now call to order the regular council meeting of the Town of St. Andrews Council on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020 at 7 p.m. at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Dining Room. And this will be our first live regular council meeting since, I believe, in March. So welcome, everyone. Look at the attendance, recording of attendance, and I note that all members of council are present with the exception of Councillor Gumichel, and I'm not sure that whether he may come to us online here or not. I will move ahead and look for an approval of the agenda as written. Could I have a motion? Councillor Grew, thank you. And a seconder. Deputy Mayor Henderson, thank you. All in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. I will now look to disclosure of conflict of interest on any matter before us tonight. Seeing and hearing none, we move ahead. There are no presentations for this meeting, and we will now to approve the minutes of previous meetings. I will first move to the minutes of the regular council meeting of August the 4th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Councillor Grew, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Bishop. Any comments in relation to those particular minutes? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the minute, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. I will now move to the minutes of the special meeting of council on August 10th, 2020. Can I have a motion to that effect? Councillor Grew and seconder. Councillor Harrison, thank you. If there are no questions about those minutes, can I have call the question? All in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are also approved. Now we move to the minutes of the special meeting of council on August the 17th, 2020. A motion to that effect. Approval. Councillor Grew, and a seconder. Councillor Bishop, thank you. If there aren't any questions about those minutes, call the question. All in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Now we will move to the minutes of the public hearing of objections for the secondary municipal plan MP 20-02 occurred on August the 26th, 2020. Motion, please. Councillor Grew, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Akaji, thank you. If there aren't any questions, all in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Now we'll move to the minutes of the special meeting council on August 26th, 2020. A motion. Councillor Grew, thank you. Councillor Akaji seconds it. If there aren't any questions about those minutes, I'll call the question. All in favor of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Thank you. Those minutes are all there. Are 7 minutes that are in your package. I believe it's the meeting of August the 31st, special meeting of August the 31st. No, it's the committee of council of August the 31st. Sorry. So, could I have a motion to approve those minutes? Councillor Grew, and seconded by Councillor Akaji. If there aren't any questions about those minutes, all in favor? Okay, Councillor Grew. Sure.
At the meeting, under Councillor comment, Councillor Grew and Councillor Gumichel voiced their concerns about the large number of meetings, which is now approaching 50. I believe we're at 49, and the negative signal that this sends to the public that may be considering running for council. So if that notation could be added to the minutes, that would be very much appreciated.
Mr. Knopper, could we amend that and perhaps we'll bring these minutes back for the next meeting to approve at the next meeting with that amendment? All in favor, council, of doing that? We'll do that. Thank you, Councillor Groom. Okay, thank you, Council. We've dealt with that. We have no communications, and we will now move to staff reports, and we will ask our Chief Administrative Officer to present his report.
I appreciate the opportunity afforded to me to discuss the initiatives and projects of the council and staff of the town of St. Andrews. It is important the citizens understand the responsibilities of their local government and how we work for the betterment of St. Andrews. Council. As of this meeting, most of the infrastructure related to the 2020 Water Street pilot project has been removed and Water Street parking reopened as of this morning. I wish to thank the businesses and citizens as we tested this initiative in response to the pandemic. Staff will provide a final questionnaire to the business community to see if we met their objective and if council and the public later in the fall. For council tonight is a motion to restore the cost code in order to allow access to install the gate that controls the water level. We thank the public for its understanding at this trying time, especially with the loss of the project late October, allowing walkers continued access on the trail until then. Once the project is underway, the trail will be cut off between Salt Marsh Road and Katie's Cove, as dump trucks will be making frequent trips along that segment to repair the damage. Earlier tonight, we had a presentation on the updated zoning bylaw. This was an informal presentation to get it out into the community and allow for feedback prior to the more formal meeting of objections to be held later in the process. This meeting will be made available on Facebook as well as YouTube. It is important that interested parties get involved early in the process so council can receive community input to address any concerns and have a close to final version of the document going into second reading. Copies are available online and comments can be directed to council through email, letter, or off a contact form on the municipal website. The annual deer nuisance hunt will take place again this fall. Council had a good meeting with then Minister Mike Holland, who was open and provided good feedback, as well as compromises the hunt. Unfortunately, next week's election has likely meant we will wait another year for additional measures. We are actively accepting a program to continue this year and taking the names of hunters who are interested. Please call the town hall at 529-5120 for more information. There's a lot of feedback generated from the presentation on the proposed rehabilitation project being suggested for 2021. Council is aware of the concerns of the community and is taking it very seriously. I asked staff to revisit the proposal to see if there's a way to maintain the look of the replacement structure to the current rule. As brought up at the August 31st meeting, there's certainly been a plethora of meetings this summer, and the cause of this is the municipal plan process, which by its nature requires community involvement and a detailed review of the documents that shape our town's future for the next decade. Of the 49 meetings year to date, which is on 38 dates, 12 are special meetings solely for the municipal plan documents. Components of process built into them. When completed, and depending on council's agenda over the winter, I will say that in my 15 year times per month, each council decides what they want to accomplish and set their meetings accordingly to achieve those objectives. Administrative. The fall leaf pickup program will once again go ahead this fall. We'll start selling bags from Town Hall next Monday, September the 14th for $3 per bundle of 10. Work will start pickup the next Monday, September 21st, and it'll end on November the 2nd. Although we send people out daily once the collection starts, we may not hit every street and they will eventually get picked up. I wish to thank staff as we started our budget process during the second week of August. We met with all department heads to get their input and give them an opportunity to bring forward new ideas. I wish to acknowledge both Terry Acton and Emily Nodden, who have taken the lead on collecting the information, preparing the documents on the 5-year plan for council. We presented council with draft version of the plan with our first meeting on it this Monday, September the 14th. Staff are diligently working to provide an initial draft that reflects a perception of your wishes. The number of future meetings will depend on council. There will be ongoing updates from the province regarding assessments, base equalization grants, and contract services that will come over the next couple of months. In conjunction with a human resources consultant, staff are working to put together an updated version of the personnel policy that reflect today's legislative and best practices environment. An ad hoc committee of council is reviewing the permanent job descriptions and organizational chart that will make up the inventory of positions for the municipality. Both documents will make their way to council for review and their final acceptance. In recognition of its 200th anniversary, a celebration is being held at Sheriff Andrews House to recognize this milestone and presenting the history of the facility. Later that day, the annual volunteer awards will be presented to those recognized as a show of gratitude for their service. Staff have been asked to work with the RCMP administration on various discussion points relating to the policing service agreement and how to improve the level of service within St. Andrews. Council appreciates the commitment of the local members that have concerns over their deployment to other areas within the region. It gives council an opportunity to review the service level and address any concerns they may have. Later this month, the clerk and I are participating in a desktop exercise organized by the New Brunswick Emergencies Measures Organization to review various scenarios that could occur under COVID-19 outbreaks. It will be a day-long exercise that will form us plans and allow us to consider council in managing local concerns and to how to manage our own resourcing levels. With the dry summer, local water users should practice some basic conversation until we get more rainfall. The lake levels are manageable, but it's easier to put into practice water savings now, for instance, only do full loads of laundry, than to wait when the situation becomes critical. The fall typically brings more rain and hopefully increased lake levels. Municipal services. With the implementation of the pilot project, a commissioner was on duty most of the summer to primarily enforce parking laws to reduce illegal parking in the Platte. In the month of August, only 9 tickets were issued, but 109 warnings. Over the years, we have had a multitude of complaints from locals about the lack of enforcement and unsafe driving conditions. Council authorized the hiring of a seasonal assistant to Mr. Clark this year in reaction to those concerns. The Public Works crew and water technicians worked cooperatively to install 3 lines along Wall Street. These upgrades should reduce the number of overflows in large rain events and are now hooked up to a real-time alarm system, or SCADA, that will allow staff to act quickly and proactively to any issues that arise. I'm encouraging as much cross-training among staff so that in the event of the expected loss of an employee, we have others able to step in to temporarily fill the void with confidence and fully. With Utility's larger half-ton truck now in operation, and more time running and spend less time running to a shop and more time dealing with issues that may arise. Chief Theriault performed testing on his equipment throughout the month to ensure it meets the specifications needed to respond to a fire. Despite being a small station, we are under the same regulations as larger centers who have a larger budget and work diligently to ensure compliance. The department responded to 13 incidents and we are meeting with primary user groups of the arena to ascertain the potential usage level moving forward. With the province authorizing the startup leagues, the hope that the various youth leagues will be given permission to fully operate. We will update council on our discussions as we move forward. The Ross Memorial Libraries is increasing its service levels, including the starting of the sale of used books again, as well as offering print copy fax services to the general public. In comparing the current data to last year's, number of visits is down. The number of items borrowed is, so readers are using the seclusion caused by the pandemic to catch down. The Ross Memorial Museum has an exhibit still going featuring the work of artist Edward Bannister. He's an important individual in St. Andrews history, and residents should take time over the next couple of weeks to see the exhibit prepared by our staff. It includes an original work by the artist on loan to us. And actually, that should only be for the next week because it does close after this weekend. For capital projects, the Wellness Center project is starting to draw to a close. We are down to putting in flooring, plumbing, and electrical fixtures, ceiling tiles, and finishing up on the paint. Still doing some exterior work, but overall it's starting to come together. For the fall, we're still waiting for the following: the final delivery of the new plow truck, repair the damage of the Katie's Cove Causeway, and do phase 1 of the project park at Elizabeth Street end. With the conclusion of summer, it is now time to reflect on the lessons learned in order to apply them for the future. Staff acknowledges it has been a challenging summer in many ways and appreciate the patience of residents as we put in place recommended health measures to protect employees and the public. I encourage citizens to follow the budget process that will shape our level of service in 2021. Reach out to council or staff for new ideas or have concerns as we strive to improve. Respectfully submitted, Chris Beard, Chief Administrative Officer, Treasurer, Town of St. Andrews. Help me.
Yes. If I could ask while you're doing that, where are we with the gen? It's someone asked me, and I honestly, I know we put an RFP out, and I didn't know. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have received feedback on that, and people. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Well, I will ask for a motion to approve all the staff reports now that I'm not muted anymore. Could I have a motion to that effect, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Akaji. All in favor of reviewing the staff reports, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. The staff reports are approved. Now I think we will move to the introduction, consideration, and passing of bylaws and motions. Finance and Administration, Councillor Bishop.
Okay. The first item is FA 191203, August 26, 2020. And the subject is 2019 to 2023 Capital Investment Plan for the Gas Fund Administrative Agreement Amendment. The back, as part of an ongoing commitment to assist with the funding of capital infrastructure projects, federal provincial governments partner in an ongoing program called the Gas Tax Fund. The overall pool is allocated to both municipalities and local service districts based on the overall population. For the town of St. Andrews, the annual allocation starts at $123,000 in 2019 and grows to $134,000 in 2023. In addition, the Government of Canada has a one-time top-up for this fund in 2019 of $140,734. Due to a change in the priorities of council, the plan should need to be amended in order to add additional projects. In order to amend the use of these funds, council needs to submit by resolution an application designing the use of these funds. Be it moved that the document, the Town of St. Andrews 5-year capital investment plan for the GTF Administrative Agreement 2019 to 2023 amended be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please? Thank you. Mr. Spear?
Sure, Your Worship. So this plan was actually submitted in 2019. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. Originally, this plan was submitted in late 2018. And at the time, count funds to asphalting and resurfacing in the town. But as we approached the budget seasons the last couple of years, we decided to change the priorities of council, that some of that money was removed and put towards storm sewers, like we had at the arena this past year, as well as trails, as recommended by Councillor Grew at the committee meeting. So this plan reflects that. That allows this money to be spread among those various projects instead of just on the resurfacing of roads.
Your Worship, since it's a 5-year plan, what happens in 2022, for example, if council decides that they only want to spend $200,000 on street resurfacing and say $200,000 for sewer replacement, they just amend it and submit it again?
So councils can keep amending the plan as frequent as they want on a year-to-year basis. But if you look, our funding's only $134,000 as a peak. We have projects $500,000 there. So it just kind of has to fall into one of those categories one of those years. So in order to amend it, they'd have to basically cut out all of those 3 components, which are all part of our asset management plan, but they'd have to amend it. So right now, this should give us a nice flexibility that there shouldn't be much requirement over the next few years. But to answer your original question, if council needs to amend it again, the province is okay with that.
Or just thinking of the priorities and then thank you.
Okay, let's start again. FA 200409, August 26, 2020, and the subject Amendment A-9 to Bylaw 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates. Third and final reading. The background: several properties in town have water and sewer services, but because the buildings have been demolished and there has been no water consumption for several years, the practice of the town has been to bill the minimum fee for these services as stated in the current water and sewer bylaw. There have been requests from several landowners to reconsider this practice. Provided is a draft amendment to section 5. Motion report. Motion 243, July 2020 was first reading. Motion 279, August 2020, second reading. And the motion tonight is that council moves to grant leave for third and final reading of Amendment A-9 to Bylaw 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates.
Can I have a second of that motion? Thank you. Any comments, council? Okay, come on. Okay, council, are there any on that? Otherwise, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. I will now read the amendment and in the bylaw for the third and final time. It's quite short, so I will read the entire thing. This is amendment number A-9 to bylaw number 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates. Be it enacted by the Council of the Town of St. Andrews that bylaw number 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates is hereby amended as follows. 1, by adding to section 5 with the following. 5, obligations of the owner. H, in the event of the demolition of the primary structure at a service location, a homeowner can request, after paying applicable fees, to have the water disconnected and water supply capped. The town will prorate any future billings based on the disconnection and eventual reconnection of the service. Read for the third time this 8th day of September 2020.
Thank you.
Councilor Bishop?
Okay, this item is FA 200804, dated August 26, 2020, submitted by Mr. Spear, and the subject is 2019 audited financial statements. The background, the audited 2019 financial statements were presented earlier this meeting by Peter Logan, CPAs, CA of Teeds, Saunders, Doyle and Company. The firm is issuing an unqualified, clean opinion that the statements present fairly the financial position of the town at the end of 2019. The motion is that council approve the 2019 audited financial statements as presented by our auditors, Doyle and Company.
Second motion, please. Councilor Harrison, thank you. Any questions, council? If not, I'll call the motion. All in favor of approving the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion is passed.
Okay, next and final motion for Finance and Administration, FA 200805, dated August 26, 2020, submitted by Mr. Spear again, and the subject is application to Municipal Finance Corporation release of 2020 funds. The background, council approved borrowing from the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board for various projects in 2019 and 2020. Now that some of these projects have been completed, we are able to go and make an application to the Municipal Finance Corporation to get the funds released. The projects being financed are as follows. General, $61,000, disconnect arena from sanitary. $16,000, heat pumps at arena. $40,000 air compressor for fire department. The utility department. $125,000 for reservoir rehabilitation. $133,000 for lift station pumps. $25,000 lagoon pump and guide rails. $163,000 water treatment plant upgrades. $158,000 for Edward Street water mains. And the motion. Be it resolved that the clerk or treasurer and mayor or mayor be authorized to and sell to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation, a municipality of the town of St. Andrews debenture in the principal sum of $721,000 on such terms and conditions as are recommended by the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation. And be it resolved that the municipality of the town of St. Andrews agrees to issue post-dated checks payable to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation as requested in payment of principal and interest charges on the debenture.
We need to read the, Mr. Spear should read the details.
Unfortunately, Your Worship, be sure that makes an official part of the motion, that table.
A table? Okay. Okay,
Councillor Bishop.
no problem. Ministerial order number. Date of ministerial order. The order number for the first one was 20-0013. The date of the order was March 9th, 2020. The date of council's resolution authorizing the application to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board was February 3rd, 2020. The purpose by function was transportation. The amount in dollars was $61,000 and the term is 15 years. The next item, 20-20, ooh, excuse me, stop. 20-0013. The date is March 9th, 2020. The date of council's resolution was February 3rd, 2020. This was for recreation. The purpose of it, $16,000, and the term is 10 years. Next item, same ministerial order number 20-0013, date March 9th, 2020. Date resolution authorizing the application was February 2020, and the amount was $40,000, and the term is 10 years. Okay, the next area is all utility. The ministerial order number was 19-0023, date March 11th, 2019. The date of council's resolution was January 14th, 19. The area was environmental health. The amount of money, $125,000, and over a period of 15 years. The next item, 20-0013, dated March 9th, 2020. It was council authorized resolution February 3rd, 2020, and it was for environmental health also for $133,000 over a period of 15 years. Next, dated March 9th, 2020, authorized by council February 3rd, 2020. It was all for environmental health for $25,000 over a period of 15 years. Next item, 20-0013, dated March 9th, 2020, authorized by council February 3rd, 2020. It's under the same heading of environmental health. It's for $163,000 over a period of 10 years. And the final item, 20-0013, dated March 9th, 2020, authorized by council February 3rd, 2020. It's under the heading environmental health again for $158,000, and its term is 20 years. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. And can I have a seconder for those motions, please? Councillor Groom, thank you. Any questions, Council? Councillor Groom?
Just a question. Looking at item number 19-0023, that was a resolution passed by council over a year and a half ago. Is there a reason? Any explanation for that?
Yes. I'm unmuted. It's a miracle. Yes, if council remembers, when we received the tender for that document last fall, it was severely over budget. And so we actually put it into our 2020 budget, but we'd already had permission to borrow from it last spring. So it's just a carryover because that project was actually completed this past April.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion is carried. And now we will move to the Public Works and Councillor Akonji.
Thank you, Your Honor, Your Worship. PW 2004-3, August 24th, 20. Katie's Cove Trail Storm Damage Issue. Background: After a storm during the Easter weekend in April, it was discovered that the storm surges and steady winds had undermined the causeway at Katie's Cove and made it unsafe to use. Welcome to the council to accept ownership of that portion of the trail system. Council must decide if they wish to address the damage this fall. After discussions with CBCL Limited, recommendations were made on how to best restore the damage and rebuild it to minimize the risk of future damage or a similar weather event. The town asked for 3 quotes, received 2, and this motion is to accept the lowest bid. There is $100,000 set aside in the capital budget for trails and sidewalks that can be used to fund the repairs. So the motion is that council approve Peter K. Gowan Construction Limited be awarded the project to restore the Katie's Cove Causeway at a price of $60,000 plus HST.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please? Councillor Grew, thank you. Comments, council? Grew?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to amend motion slightly based on comments that the CAO made in his presentation, that there is a gate to install at the Katie's Cove Causeway. And the amendment I'd like to make is just an addition on the end, and it would read, and an allowance of up to $5,000 to install the gate to control water levels in Katie's Cove. We have $100,000 set aside, cost for the contractor $60,000 plus HST. We have the funds there to do this, and this would make it simpler for the CAO to execute that work.
Do we know if 5,000 will cover it?
Yes. The gate is already activated. It's just waiting to be installed. The reason it hasn't been installed is that the causeway was in such a poor state that the construction crews couldn't get out there. The other thing I would, just as an aside, I would suggest that the construction on the causeway wait until the ground sort of freezes so that we can minimize damage to the trail, and that would be probably prudent.
Mr. Spear, could I just ask you to comment on the suggestion here?
We'll have to play a snow game because we don't plow it, so we don't want to wait too long and then find out, because by the time the ground freezes solid, you're probably into late November, early December. But it's a great suggestion, so we'll keep an eye on that and talk to the contractor to see what he thinks we should do.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. We'll look for a seconder for the motion to amend. Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I just had a question.
Yeah, sure.
So what's the CAO's thoughts on the $5,000 extra? Is that something that's required? Is it something that you're asking for?
It's a good idea. The truth be told, we usually leave the gates open for the winter. So I guess it's a discussion whether we put it out and have it potentially go through damage, or leave it in the public works yard and install it in the spring when we need it. We usually typically, but it's still good. It gives us authorization to do it, and we'll have to potentially put it in our budget as a thought. But I'll talk to the operations/asset manager to see what his thoughts are, whether it should be ready to go. One thing we have to do too is we aren't sure if there might be any damage to the actual connection there. So I know the gate's been refurbished. We just want to be able to have a look once we start the construction to how the culvert and stuff held up. So we'll have to have a look at that. So if that's over and above the 5,000, we'll report back to council what's needed.
Is the 5,000 internal accounting and the town will be solving any of that? Or is it an outside?
It's, again, Councillor Grew was involved with the Katie's Cove Inc. that took it out. So he probably knows that number better than I, the truth be told. The problem is the thing's so big, you're going to have to at least hire a boom truck. And there's some safety issues about working on the side of a bank. So I think in my own mind, I'm thinking the $5,000 sufficient, but we haven't really looked at it hard enough to decide what's going to take until we have a closer look once construction starts.
Just for clarity, it's not going to be used this winter, but we would put it in and risk the damage to it. I just wanted to clarify that.
No, so once we start, we'll have to have a harder look to see if the connection to the flap valve that's the gate is still sufficient if it was damaged in the storm from the movement of the causeway. And then I guess I'll have to talk to our engineers just to see if they think we should put it in, because we always leave it open for the winter anyway to let the water flow back and forth. And so in my own mind, but I could be wrong, but in my own mind, I'm thinking it's better to leave it in the public works yard so it doesn't look, fall into winter storms again. That if we can save, because the gate itself isn't refurbished, but it's still a 20 or 30-year-old piece of equipment. So if we can save it by keeping it, out of harm's way, then it's probably the better thought. But I haven't really given it a thought beyond that.
Your Worship, we could just call it a friendly amendment if Councillor Groom, Councillor Bishop would allow it, that it'd be up to CAO's discretion for the $5,000, meaning that it's not something that has to happen. Personally, I'm very skeptical if it's not going to be used. Why would we put it in for the winter?
Yeah, so it's mostly the timing of when it should be put in,
Yeah.
right? Rather than whether we should do it. And and if you're okay with that, Councillor Grew, as a friendly amendment, we'll.
I just wanted to give the CAO the discretion,
Flexibility, yeah.
ability to do it.
Okay, good. So I guess all in favor of the motion as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion is approved. Okay.
Okay, the next item is PS 200-304A and PS 20304. Date is the 26th of August, 2020. The subject is Provincial Emergency Communications Agreement. The background, the Department of Public Safety of New Brunswick radio system, all municipalities to move to the system. For further information on this, please call the staff report provided, and there is no staff report. To move forward with the contract with the St. John Board of Police Commissioners to engage in the services. So motion P200-304A. Move that council, I move the council moves to sign an agreement with the St. John Board of Police Commissioners for the new trunk mobile radio system for emergency services.
I have a seconder for that motion. Thank you, Councillor Akaji. Discussion, Council. Councillor Grew.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm looking at the staff report produced by Mr. Spear, our CAO, and I know that he has grave concerns on the wording of the agreement and the exclusion clause tied to the increased assessment. I also have the same concerns, and I think that having the cost of the tied to the assessment value is grossly unfair to the town. Whereas we could be 3 times more for the same service that is provided for assessed value. You're not paying directly for the service based on your assessed value of your properties, which makes when you're talking about a service agreement.
No, it's muted. So yeah, no, the person I spoke to, they really thought it was good, especially when trying to get other people on the line, that before you'd have one person in the middle trying to tell you what someone else said. Now you can just go to like a breakout room and talk to them. So it seems like a vast improvement over current how we do things. But yeah, I don't know if we know how communities are being billed. Is that just the typical way communities across New Brunswick are being billed on it? Or do we know that?
The province somehow came up with this rate that's being uniformly applied right across the province. I haven't quite figured out. I've been making calls all through the department trying to find out who set the rate, but no one's returning my calls. It might be worth, we have already tabled this once, was it the last regular meeting or at a special meeting of council, but you might want to table this until I get a couple more answers. Having said that, I can tell you, we don't have much for alternatives. Our local dispatchers in St. Stephen have lost Black's Harbor for sure, all the LSDs, as you like to say, the mayor's the province of New Brunswick, so they've already moved over to the trunk mobile system. So I'm not sure if there's any other service provider, but what is, we have a 20-day opt-out clause if we can make alternative arrangements. So I guess council has to decide, because there is a timeline a bit on it this year. And if we don't sign on to it in the next few months, we might lose out on the free equipment, which the deputy mayor pointed out in previous meetings, isn't free if we're paying 3 times the rate. But nonetheless, what put in is maybe equipment to join the system otherwise, if there's no other service provider. So, like, I think the rollout wasn't very good from the province, and I think we should probably, once the new government approach the minister, at least our local MLA, to try to get us some names and so they can describe to us how they came up with this rate. And I'd really like to fight the escalation. When I say the rate is what it is, rate, then tied to inflation. Because our growth rate, as we pointed out, has been 3 to 5%. Well, inflation has been a lot less over the last several years. So I still have concerns about it going up. And the way it works too is it's not of just a municipality, but it's also of what we call the fire service district, which includes Shamcook and Bocabec and Bayside. And the problem is if our assessment's going up faster than theirs, which it traditionally does, then it means that our share of that cost is going to go up higher. That way it doesn't look like a great deal for the municipalities, and other CAOs have expressed the same concerns, but it's been really good anyone to answer questions on this. That if council remembers, this was introduced to us last fall at the last minute, and we were just told what the rate's going to be. And I was at a meeting where it was rolled out for this group and this region, and I asked how the rate came about, and no one at that meeting could really tell us how it came about. So it seems to be a great mystery. Now, for the residents, as you understand, the town of St. Stephen, we're paying, I think, up to $9,000 a year for going up to between $25,000 and $30,000 a year. So it's a significant increase. So CAT feels that they want to use the opt-out clause and do the investigations after. We could table this for now. Otherwise, it's at council's discretion how you want to proceed.
So we know.
Do we know our other, because you said you've spoken with other CAOs, is it just possible that people are going to sign in and then form a common front to change things? Or are we just locked in once we're locked in?
I'd say that's kind of a political
Yeah.
thing, and that it might be worth a discussion, especially for the union, because we're not the only municipality across New Brunswick that's, because primarily the city's dispatch centers have been the ones that are being the dispatch services. So I'm expecting there's lots of little ones that serve small municipalities that are being disbanded to meet this. So it's worth a bigger question. And maybe when the minister, whoever set the rate, comes back and explains it, council will be happy with the explanation and move. There is an improvement in technology, there's no doubt about it. But right now it's been a void that we've been asking for several months to get an answer to, and no one's really come back to us to supply an answer.
Yes, so obviously the province has got us between a rock and a hard place. It's a service that unfortunately we're probably going to need to go to, but our the taxpayer standards, and they haven't done a job of explaining exactly where these fees are from and calculating them. I definitely feel from St. Stephen because they're losing revenue plus adding an expense. So it's a double hit for them. And from my understanding, they haven't signed on yet either, and they're trying to figure out their course. So I think that this would be a wonderful opportunity for Mr. Sturgeon to email them on behalf of the union municipalities, ask them to make a formal presentation and answer some questions. With that being said, I don't want to miss out on the equipment. If we're going to do it anyway, because we're in a rock and a hard place, I don't want that opportunity, but I think is our job is to represent the people of this community. This hasn't been justified properly for us to make a decision today. So again, if you think we have more time, I have no problem with 3 days notice, getting together and having a special meeting if we need to, so we don't miss this, but I don't want to rush a decision today on something that they haven't properly explained to us.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we need to push back with the province somewhat and explain to them that, as the Deputy Mayor indicated, we represent the taxpayers here. And with this system, our taxpayers will be paying twice the rate of St. Stephen and up to 3 times the rate of St. George, same service. And that's based on the assessed values. And I think that's grossly unfair, where we're getting the same service, same equipment, but we're paying hugely inflated prices. So that has to be sort of articulated to the powers that be and say, okay, how do you make sense of this? Because basing it on assessed value makes no common sense whatsoever. It's not tied to the level of service. The assessed value is not, it just doesn't compute.
Yeah, actually, just a comment, if I might, that's very similar to our fire service. Yeah, it's very similar to the fire service contract we have to service the LSDs, where it's not based on the actual service we deliver. It's based on the tax base of the LSDs and the tax base of St. Andrews. So every time our tax base goes up a little bit, our share of paying for that service goes down. I guess I'm muted. Yeah, anyway, not to belabor this, but it's very similar situation that we have with the entire fire service contract. This could actually just make it worse. Over the years with that contract, about 50% of our fire calls are in the LSDs and 50% pay less than 30% of the cost of the contract. And the cost of a service call to the LSDs is usually higher than the cost of the service call to within the St. Andrews. So this is just worsening the same sort of idea.
And it's how would I put it? It's doubly worse because the grants from the province are based on the assessed value as well. And we get penalized because our assessed value is high. And now we're being asked to pay more because our assessed value is high.
Would they then have just taken this legacy billing system and said, okay, well, let's use it for this as well? So we probably know our answer. They didn't really.
They didn't think about it.
Yeah.
But I think what Councillor Group has said, and I agree with this, and it's always been my view, because I was involved in that more directly when I was on council, is that it should be a service contract based on the amount of service that's delivered. It should change with the amount of service. And I think this is a good time. I commend council for wanting to step down on this. And there are also some very, very scary things in that contract about, automatic 5-year renewals if you don't pay attention and notice to tell them you don't want another 5-year renewal. There's all kinds of pretty heavy-handed stuff in the contract. So they obviously want the money in St. John. There. So, council.
The other issue, you could investigate this if you hit a brick wall, which I suspect you might, is there may be an opportunity for them to provide us with additional equipment instead of price. So there may be some flexibility in that regard that we might be able to sort of get some sort of, I guess, offset.
If this is province-wide, why are we connected to, are we connected to St. John because that's our region? Or could we also be soliciting from Fredericton and Moncton or other larger hubs to get the service from? Because I assume it'll lock in province-wide. It doesn't matter where you live.
I think St. John has the dispatch service.
Well, yeah, doesn't matter who we're logged in at because the rate's province-wide anyway.
Yeah.
So we're going to pay the same rate no matter who we're dealing with, whatever city we deal with. The region, so this dispatch center is going to be handling Charlotte County, right?
Okay, so it'll literally be our dispatch center is why we're doing it, okay. So it's not a one based in Fredericton for the whole province. There are sub-regions.
No, there's sub-regions, 6 or 7 sub-regions that are being served from different dispatch centers.
They seem to be mostly oriented around the cities of New Brunswick and those law enforcement agencies in the cities of New Brunswick. They seem to be predicated on it. This one is St. John Border Police Commissions, which is essentially St. John Police Force.
I think my opinion on this, though, is that it sounds like it's going to be a bit of a long battle, and I'm assuming we may have to join up before we win it. Because I don't want to be left behind, and just us and St. Stephen are the only people that can talk on the phone.
No, I agree with that. I think that's the direction to the year is to follow the sun. Sure we don't have them different practice. But I don't get that impression. They're getting a little anxious because we're digging in our heels here and saying that they won't like this, but I don't hear about doing anything to this in the next month. But Mr. Spear, you can come back and tell us if you get that kind of feedback. Okay, so motion to table.
I move we table this.
All in favor of tabling this?
And that negates the second motion.
Yeah, well, again, it becomes kind of redundant, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah, we should
Yeah.
motion to table the second.
I move that we table the second motion as well.
All in favor of tabling the second? Thank you. It's tabled.
See, I get made fun of for not muting myself or unmuting. I need multiple buttons here. Your worship, we're at question period. If there's no other motions or anything from council, but that's what we're at. We're at question period. So I will, if council can put in your earphones, I will ask Vic Miller. Vic, do you have any questions or comments for council on tonight's agenda?
Yeah, I just have one question. You know, on that the Van Horn Trail, and the city took over part of the Van Horn Trail. What part did the city take over? Was it from like Salt Marsh Road down to where the water comes into Katy Cove, or the whole Van Horn Trail, like from Water Street?
Your worship, I guess. So, Mr. Miller, it's a little complicated. The whole Van Horn Trail crosses municipal land, private land, and is currently going to use some streets and stuff. But specifically to your question, that portion is basically from the town already owned up to where the entrance to Katy Cove on the backside where we can see the causeway. There were a few feet before, and then we're taking over from the causeway to the other end of that little basin, essentially.
From the causeway on out, like past Katie's Cove?
Yeah, so if you're standing at the beach at Katie's Cove, basically what you can see of the trail is what was being transferred to us. But we'd already owned from Water Street up to that point anyway.
So you own Water Street, like where Water Street's downtown, or where Water Street's out there on principles?
Well, we already own from Water Street to O'Neill Farm Road, or Salt Marsh O'Neill Farm, and then from there to just about as you get onto the causeway, where it's already owned by us.
Right.
And
now,
then there's private landowners if you take the other trail towards the beach.
And you know where the trail splits off there and you go out toward the causeway on the right side? and the other trail goes to Katie's Cove. The town owns that part that's on the Katie Cove side, right? The trail.
No, actually, there's an agreement with a couple of private landowners to use that, but it's not our property. Through the generosity of those landowners that trail was able to be put up there.
Who keeps that trail, like, you know, financially keeps it working there? Is it the city or the landowners?
Still okay to go, Your Worship? Hey, I don't mind, just didn't want to step on anyone's toes. So actually, Kiwanis start that, and then there's another community group called Sortie, St. Andrews Outdoor Recreation and Trails Inc. that is made of volunteers that has been looking after it. Again, the asphalt and stuff is relatively new, so it has required some mowing and some, you know, trees falling, things to clear them out of the way. Council gave a grant in May, I think it was, for $5,000 or $6,000 to enable that this year, and for some work to be done on there. But it'll probably be part of the budget discussions moving forward, what responsibility the town may take on the whole system.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, there was only one comment on Facebook, and it was nice to have Water Street back to normal. Beyond that, that's all the comments and questions we have from the public, Your Worship.
Just wanted to remind the public that we have a municipal election, or sorry, a provincial election coming up on Monday. So everybody to exercise their democratic right to vote. We have 5 candidates looking to be our next MLA. It's a very important election, and a lot of eyes are on St. Croix. So opportunities to have your say don't happen often, and it's a great opportunity to do so. So please vote for what you think's best for yourself and our community.
I don't have much. I cut out and thank Mr. Bruce Richardson for his work. It was a pretty thankless job being the commissioner out there in the heat, issuing tickets, and a lot of people don't like those, but I think he did a pretty good job, and it's a good addition to the town.
I just have a really quick one. I want to again give full credit to our public works crew that by the time I got down this morning, it was all gone. It was been there for 3 months, and as if it had never been. I look forward to examination of do this summer. As it goes through what we learned from the experience and learn what we may not do in the and I think it fits very nicely with the meeting, and I hope all serious consideration of the master plan, because things get dovetail very nicely. Again, thanks to for putting all of that up and for getting it all down in record time.
Can I just add for information purposes for the public? The 200th anniversary of Shared Advantage starts on Saturday. Is the public invited to attend? Or is it part of the meeting only?
Mute your worship.
Yeah. So through Your Worship, the question was about the 200th anniversary celebration of Sheriff Andrews' house and whether it was by invitation only or is the public invited. The public is invited to it. We did do invitations to select people, the select representatives, but it is open to the public. It's at 10 a.m. on Saturday, September 12th behind Sheriff Andrews' house. We'll have a little bit of seating. We'll ask everyone to please maintain social distancing for COVID and bring your masks as you'll be allowed to tour the facility after the presentation. And it's being put together by the town, the Charlotte County Archives, and just representatives and volunteers from around. So it should be a great event. And I encourage anyone to participate.
Thank you, Mr.
The volunteer awards, are they held later on in the day?
Through your worship, the volunteer awards will be held at 11 o'clock behind Sheriff Andrews' house the same day, Saturday, September 12th. So 10 a.m. is the Sheriff Andrews event, and 11 o'clock is the volunteer awards, same location. And if there is a rain date, it will be here at the arena.
Thank you, Councilor. If there aren't any other comments, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.